Although it feels very large, although your goals feel very far away, you have to put in every second of your life to eventually get there. And do the things that you know align with you, your values, your standards, and ultimately that goal every single second of your life to eventually get there. What is going on, my friends? Welcome back to another episode of the Morning Takeaway Podcast, aka the Inside Influence Podcast. We've got about 7 more episodes until we fully transition this thing into the Inside Influence Podcast, and that'll be mid-March-ish when I get back from Africa, and that's when we'll start formulating this plan to have everybody, have people and guests and other quote-unquote influencers on the show. If you've been following me for a while, you know that I don't love the word influencer because I think anybody is an influencer. You and I have influence on someone in our everyday path, right? So everyone is an influencer. That said, I want to get straight to the point today, and it'll be a quick episode. I just want to kind of go on a rant as I had this experience the other day. Not really, it's nothing crazy, but I was just typing in to personalize my bib as I get ready to run the half marathon in Vegas, the marathon in San Diego in June, and the Nashville marathon, all with Run Rock and Roll. The one in April 28th, the day before my birthday, is Nashville. And I was personalizing my bib, and all I put was a number. Now, that number has consistently shown up for me to be a very important number, and I want to share it with you because I think when you take our life and put it in this perspective of a number, it really sheds light on what we have to live every day. And interestingly enough, one of the questions that I get is, do you have tattoos? Now, I do not have any tattoos, but if I did have a tattoo, the one thing that I would get tattooed is this number. Now, the reason why I haven't gotten it tattooed is, number one, because I don't really for sure know that I want a tattoo. But number two, I want to make sure that I fully, undoubtedly live by this number every single day of my life. And if I'm still going through ruts of not fully living up to this, then I'm not fully living it, right? And I go through stretches where I'm doing it for 4 months at a time, and I feel so aligned. And maybe the moral of the story when we get there is the fact that you can't always be in alignment, but understanding that maybe you are in a little hiccup, but doing the best you can is being in an alignment. So without just prolonging this number too far along, it's the number of 86,400. Now, what does that mean? There are 86,400 seconds in every single day. Not 1 second over, not 1 second less. And the reason why this is significant to me is when you think about that number, it sounds so large. 86,400. It sounds just unattainable, right? And if you put that in whatever other category of life, of financial or lifting weight, whatever that 86,000 number, it's a huge number. Try to count to 86,000, right? It's a lot. But when you take it back on the most minimal level of a second, it begins to feel very real. Now, the time that I'm spending talking right now, however many seconds go by, we're now 3 minutes and 36 seconds into this, and that's culminated of many seconds, right? The time that you are taking to listen to this, 1 second is going by every time. And in order to complete a full day, obviously, you have to go through 1 second 86,400 times. And as I sit back and I think about that, it's very, very similar to life in the idea of delayed gratification. Now, if you woke up every day and you're like, oh, I'm going to count to 86,400 and that's going to be my day, right? You'd spend 86,400 seconds counting. But that would take a long time. It would take a full day to be exact. And where I'm going with this is the fact that although it feels very large, although your goals feel very far away, although the thing that you want feels very far away, although whatever trip you have is so far away, you have to put in every second of your life to eventually get there and do the things that align with you, your values, your standards, and ultimately that goal every single second of your life to eventually get there. Because whether we like it or not, number one, time is going to pass. But what we do with that time is ultimately up to us and how we spend our time, right? And I don't want this to be too like you have to be crazy in your routine, right? I think if anything, it's just a reality check to remember, like, hey, I've got 86,400 seconds and I get to choose how I spend them. And I think that's the biggest takeaway for me is I know in my own life that I want to utilize as many seconds. Now, don't get me wrong. I know somebody's out there thinking, well, don't you have to sleep, dude? Like, you got to sleep. Well, yes. If I get my minimum of 6 to 7 hours of sleep, I know that I feel good, and that is a good amount of sleep for me. A little less, I'm feeling a little groggy and not my best self. A little more, I'm still feeling a little groggy, and I don't really feel that great on a lot of sleep. So for me, like, utilizing those seconds while I sleep, that is a good use of those seconds. I don't know if you've ever heard the stat, but if the average person were to sleep 8 hours a night for the entirety of their life, every night, they would sleep 26 years of their life away. That's just a crazy thought in and of itself. Take that to 86,400 how you want, but I think it also leads me to another quote that I heard in a book the other day, and I'm going to butcher the quote. I'm not going to hit it word for word, but it essentially says that your life is lived in the time from when you wake up to the time you go to bed. Now, yes, you're still living obviously when you're asleep, but I think there's so much power to that in the idea that while we are awake, we have the ability to choose how we spend that time and choose to spend that 86,400 seconds. So without beating a dead horse and saying this so many times, I think the takeaway that I just wanted to give you is, number one, you get to choose how you spend your life. Number two, cherish those seconds, because although something feels like a huge, lofty goal, each second that goes by could be getting put to use for a bigger purpose. And I think that's, to hit on my idea of delayed gratification, it is doing just that. Doing something every second. Maybe if it's not a second for you, it's every hour. Maybe it's doing one hard thing a day that will get you to that goal of losing 10 pounds, right? Do one hard thing every single day and delay that gratification of you have to have it in the immediate time, in the present tense, right? And understand that the work that you are doing every single day, just that one thing, will begin to compound. It's just like finances. And you invest in some kind of interest rate and it's going to compound effectively, right? So with that said, I think there's just so much correlation there in finances and fitness and goals and just life in general. But I wanted to give that to you because to wrap this thing full circle, on my bib, I am going to have 86,400 as long as somebody else didn't take it and beat me to it. But hopefully that's the case. And if race day comes around and I have 86,400 on my bib, people know why. So maybe that's my race day version of a tattoo, as it won't be tattooed on me, but that's it. And if I were to get it, it would probably literally be on like the inside of my wrist where it's covered by my watch band all the time, so that every morning when I put my watch on, I see it, but nobody else really sees it. So anyways, different story for a different time, but that is all I have for you today. It's just a quick podcast. I could sit here and talk to you for hours. I think it'll be really fun once I do start getting people on the podcast to just go back and forth on the dialogue and dive deep into people's life and history and just different stories. I think it's going to be so much fun to hear about other people's life, but bring it into a deep context of not only my thoughts, but their thoughts and how they view the world or their life or their routines or maybe some of their successes and their failures and what they've learned, right? And and I'm really looking forward to that. I'll be starting with some of the people that I know in the space that I'm in on social media, and getting them on there first, and finally get into a consistent environment where it's not just me and a random picture on the wall. I have a "Don't forget to smile" literally LED sign to go up on the wall once I finally get my house and get my studio soundproofed and everything. I'm going to have just a designated, it's going to be my office, but also podcast studio. And I'm really excited about this. It's going to be a nice little project, but that's coming with episode 100. Transparently, I am not there yet. I am working hard to figure it all out, but it's up to me to do what I can in the 86,400 seconds to get to make that masterpiece of the Inside Influence. But plan is to take over the podcast world, not take over, but make my name heard in the Inside Influence world, in the podcast world with Inside Influence. That made zero sense. But anyways, I'm just talking to talk now. So I don't have a random question for you, but I do appreciate you listening. If you don't mind, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to the first one to see my videos on the tube of the You with me. Other update, I'm going to be trying to getting all of my podcasts uploaded to Spotify and Apple Music so that you have access to my podcasts there, all the way from episode 1 up to 100 and so on and so forth. Thank you for listening. If you don't mind sharing this with somebody you might think will take a little note of 86,400, it's up to you. But that is all I have for you. I appreciate you. Have an awesome freaking day, and don't forget to smile.